Have you ever wondered how romantic love became such a central part of human life? From medieval duty-bound unions to the liberated passion of today, love has evolved in fascinating and surprising ways. But why do we fall in love? Let's start with ancient India, where we find one of the earliest texts on love in the Kama Sutra, written by Vatsyayana around the 3rd century BC. Vatsyayana believed in marrying for love, and he viewed sexual pleasure as an essential part of life's joy. Quite the progressive perspective for his time. Meanwhile, in ancient Egypt, the focus was more on family and reproduction. Birth control was practiced, and procreation was seen as a primary reason for marriage. In classical Greece, however, romantic and passionate love was celebrated in literature and myth. Lovers were often portrayed as heroes, and desire was intertwined with beauty and heroism. However, societal norms also meant that love was often seen through the lens of power dynamics, especially in the case of relationships between men and their younger lovers. In ancient Greece, love was a multifaceted concept. Plato spoke of 3 types of love: eros, the fiery passion that drives us; philia, the deep bond of friendship; and agape, the universal unconditional love that connects us all. Plato said that love is the pursuit of beauty and the land to the divine. Aristotle, on the other hand, saw love as rooted in virtue. To him, the best love was philia, a friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. In Aristotle's writing, he states,
"The truest friendships are based on goodness and virtue. They endure beyond all else."
Now let's take another closer look at Europe. In medieval England, love was viewed as a form of self-sacrifice. It wasn't about passion as we think of it today. Instead, love was about being kind, selfless, and often spiritual. Friendship and love were often considered closely tied, with an emphasis on deep emotional connections rather than sexual attraction. By the 12th and 13th centuries, however, things started to change. The concept of courtly love emerged, focusing on the idealization of woman and the suffering that came with unattainable love. This idea deeply influenced literature and became central to the romantic narrative in the West. By the time we reached the 16th and 17th centuries, love was described as a consuming force, even compared to an illness that couldn't be resisted. In the Victorian era, however, love was viewed as delicate and spiritual, separate from the crude and lustful physical desire. The 20th century brought a radical shift with the sexual revolution. Love became more about personal fulfillment and sexual liberation rather than the spiritual connection or societal duty. It was during this time that romantic love, as we know it today, began to truly take shape, as something that blends passion with emotional depth. So as you can see, the way we view romantic love has changed and continues to change over time, from the spiritual and duty-bound love to medieval Europe to the passionate and liberated love of today's world. Our ideas of what it means to love have evolved dramatically. And who knows, the next shift could just be around the corner. Romantic love has long fascinated scholars and storytellers alike. While some argue that it is a Western invention, others suggest it is a universal human experience. In this exploration, we dive into the debates and research surrounding romantic and passionate love across cultures. Stone in 1989 stated that romantic love, as idealized in the West, is deeply embedded in its culture. The hero of American movie is always a romantic lover. Stone's findings align with earlier contentions by Doi and other researchers who claim that romantic love is largely absent in cultures like China and Japan. However, recent studies challenge this notion. Anthropologists such as Fisher and Shaver argue that passionate love is a universal emotion. They support this, contending that passionate love is biological, rooted, and transcends cultural boundaries. So, how come there are differences in results between analysis in the West and the East in romantic love? Xiaoming Su, a professor of psychology at the State University in Idaho, stated that when you look at cross-cultural research of romantic relationships, you get very striking differences. For example, in some Asian countries tend to describe love in more negative terms than Westerners do. Historian Stephanie Kuhn studies marriages, and she says only recently has there been an assumption that love would come before marriage, stating that falling in love before marriage in India was considered an actively antisocial act. Falling in love is arguably about pleasing yourself, and some culture puts more emphasis than Westerners do on serving your family and community. When asked about love, many people in China will talk about the duty and responsibility rather than the Hollywood style of romance. But if you look at love in China and the aspects of history and poetry and literature, there is an abundance of romance. Jankovic and Fisher in 1992 did a huge study spanning over 166 cultures and examining signs of romantic love, such as love songs, tales, and infatuation and longing. And they found evidence of romantic love in 147 cultures, indicating its near universal presence. Yet cultural variables significantly influence how often people fall in love and how they express it. Cultural values and traditions influence how we connect, but at its core, love remains a universal human experience. With love being displayed universally, it lays the foundation that it has evolved in all of us. But how and why did it evolve? Let's start with a concept called acceptation, otherwise known as co-option. This is when a trait evolves for one purpose but takes on a completely new function. A classic example would be birds' feathers. Initially, they may evolve for temperature regulation, but eventually they were co-opted for flight. Psychologist Lisa Diamond suggests that adult pair bonding in humans could be an acceptation. Originally, bonding mechanisms may have evolved from mother-infant relationships, but over time, they were repurposed for romantic love. But how does this explain the uniqueness of human love? Dr. David Buss, a leading evolutionary psychologist, points to three key differences between humans and our closest primate relatives, the chimpanzees: the evolution of long-term mating, the concealment of female ovulation, and the heavy investment by men in their children. In chimpanzees, mating typically occurs during the female's estrus, signaled by a bright red genital swelling and pheromones that drive males wild. Outside of estrus, males largely ignore the females, but in human, ovulation became cryptic, hidden. While there are subtle signs like slight glow to the skin or small increase in sexual desire, men can't reliably detect when women are ovulating. This shift was monumental. With ovulation concealed, human mating patterns changed dramatically. Men and women began having sex throughout the menstrual cycle, not just during ovulation. This led to a long-term pair bonding relationship that spanned years or even decades. Unlike their chimpanzee cousins, men began heavily investing in their offspring, sharing resources like hunted meat to provide for their children. This commitment to long-term mating also reshaped the way men acquired resources, now driven by the need to provide for their family. These changes were extraordinary. They laid the foundation for love as we know it today, according to Buss, an intricate dance of biology, behavior, and emotion. And did you know being in love might be one of the most powerful addictions you'll ever experience? I'm not just talking about butterflies in your stomach or staying up all night texting someone special. I mean a real measurable addiction. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist and senior researcher at the Kinsey Institute, has spent decades researching what happens in the brain when we fall in love. Her groundbreaking work suggests that love isn't just a feeling, it's a natural addiction. Using brain scans, Fisher discovered that the brain's reward system is activated when we're in love. This is the same system that lights up when people use drugs like cocaine or experience other behavioral addictions. Essentially, love hijacks the same circuits that fuel cravings and euphoria. To test her theory, Fisher conducted some fascinating studies. Let's break down two of them. In one study, she scanned the brains of 15 college students who had just been dumped. These individuals were shown pictures of their exes, and guess what? The same parts of their brain lit up that are associated with addiction to substance like cocaine and nicotine. Next, Fisher looked at the brains of people who'd been married for an average of 21 years. Their scans showed something fascinating. Unlike the anxiety and obsession seen in new relationships, their brains showed activity in regions associated with calmness and pain suppression. Long-term love, it seemed, transforms the addiction into something more stable and soothing. Love isn't just in the heart, it's deeply rooted in your brain chemistry. It can bring you unparalleled joy, but it also has the power to send you spiraling, just like any other addiction. Fisher's work helps us understand why love feels so intense and why it's such a universal human experience. So how do we fall in love? Research suggests that it's not just about meeting the right person, but also being the right state of mind and feeling secure to disclose. Romantic relationships are shaped by many factors, but one of the most critical is self-disclosure, the process of sharing personal information with your partner. This concept is central to understanding how trust, intimacy, satisfaction develop in a relationship. The importance of self-disclosure in romantic relationship has been extensively studied in psychology. For example, Sprecher and Hendrick in 2004 investigated heterosexual dating couples and found a positive correlation between self-disclosure and relationship satisfaction. Couples who disclosed more personal information reported feeling closer and more fulfilled in their relationship. In a similar study, Lorenzi and colleagues in 2005 asked participants to write daily diary entries about their relationship. They discovered that both self-disclosure and the perception of the partner's openness were directly linked to the increased feelings of intimacy. Self-disclosure operates on principles of reciprocity and trust. When one partner shares personal information, it signals vulnerability and openness, which encourages the other partner to reciprocate. This mutual exchange creates a cycle of increased intimacy and understanding. However, it's important to note that the timing and context of self-disclosure matter. Sharing too much too soon can feel overwhelming, while withholding too much can hinder the development of trust. The key is a gradual balance and exchange that matches the stage of the relationship. In summary, self-disclosure is not merely about sharing information. It's a dynamic process that deepens relationships by fostering trust and emotional connection. Supported by decades of psychological research, this concept underscores the importance of open and honest communication in romantic partnerships. Understanding self-disclosure can help us approach relationships with greater intentionality and awareness. By sharing thoughtfully and reciprocating openly, we can build stronger, more fulfilling connections. Romantic love reveals fascinating intersections between biology, culture, and history, from its early conceptualization in ancient civilization to its diverse modern-day interpretation. Love transcends geographical and cultural boundaries, yet remains deeply shaped by societal norms and values. Whether seen as a biological drive for pair bonding or a social cultural construct or a personal journey of self fulfillment, romantic love is undeniably a universal human experience. So we continue to explore the complexities biologically, psychologically, and socially. One thing becomes clear: love in all its forms is integral to what makes us human. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of love's history, evolution, and impact. Keep questioning, keep learning, and most importantly, keep loving. I'll see you again soon.